Can you kiss them?
If I can fucking kiss Cow, dude, it's over. It's gonna be fucking game of the year next year. It's gonna be over.
My dream for 20 years.
I don't mean to alarm you, David.
What?
We have one more week until the Game of the Year episode.
I'm not ready.
I don't feel ready either.
I am alarmed.
I am alarmed, yeah.
Yeah.
Not to scare you. I suspect to excite our listeners, though.
I don't even know what I've played.
Yeah, mercifullybacklogged.com really helps me out with the what have I played this year stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Usually just kind of always logging stuff to it. And
Yeah.
I think I've got it. I think I've mostly got where I'm at this year.
Wow. How many do you have? How many are we doing? I guess I should say.
So, like the first couple years of Video Game Podtimism, the Optimist video game variety show where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is Chase.
My name is David.
The first couple years we did this, we had like a very arbitrary number of Goaty picks, if I remember correctly.
We sure
it was
did.
Like 6 the first year or something.
We just pulled it out of thin air.
Yeah. And then I think last year we were like, you know what? I think it has to be 10 because 2023 was such a wild year for games.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like 10's probably still fine, you know? Like,
yeah, we can
if
do
we're
it.
going with anything, we'll stick with the 10. That feels all right. But yeah, I've got 10 and I think I'm mostly ready to talk about them, but like they really do move around.
Mm-hmm. Depending on what you've been playing that day.
Just like kind of how I'm feeling, you know? Like, does that game sit well with me? And like, I really try not to do like recency bias. Let me see.
It's hard.
Actually, I don't think really any of these are that recent other than one of them. But number one has been locked for quite some time, I will say.
Okay.
And so like that one has been pretty clear, but the like 10 through 2, I'm like, I don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
Really floats around.
I feel like you usually have your number one locked and loaded pretty early.
There is usually something that speaks to me on a level where I'm like, I think that's it. I think that's pretty much what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of them are just like, all of these did that, but like to just kind of lesser degrees, and they all kind of float around at certain points.
Sure.
But yeah, so hey, if you can look, if you're all looking at your calendars, which listener, I know you are, you're just sitting there waiting, looking at your calendars. This episode comes out on the 15th of December, and the next one will come out on the 22nd, which will be our Goaty. And then we're going to take a year off. We're going to take a week off. We're going to take all of 2025.
Sabbatical.
We'll be back in 2026. No, we'll be back after the first of the year. So we're skipping the 29th and we'll be back on the 5th. So you'll have to go 1 week without a Podtimism episode. But you'll have plenty of Goaty, I'm sure. Those episodes do tend to be kind of lengthy.
It's gonna be a good one.
I think so too.
Get ready.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of variety in there this year. There's a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, we were talking about this before the call, just like as you said, an embarrassment of riches of RPGs this year. Many RPGs.
So many RPGs.
And I'm excited to talk about them. Speaking of talking about them, David, have you been playing games?
I have been, Chase.
I would really love to hear about them.
Yeah, I will tell you starting now.
Great.
I played Hot Wheels Unleashed 2.
Oh my God. Okay, pause. What is this?
It's the Hot Wheels racing game, but it's the sequel now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why they needed to release another one so quick after Hot Wheels Unleashed came out like a year or two ago, I think. Yeah,
it was 2 prior. This one came out in 2023, like about a year ago. And the one prior to that came out in 2021.
There you go. So I played Hot Wheels Unleashed 2.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I'm a sucker for racing games. I just, whenever I don't know what to play, I sometimes just peruse my game catalogs of whatever streaming service I'm on, or game subscription service I'm on, I should say. And I saw this one and I said, hey, that sounds like a good way to spend like 30 minutes. And it was a good way to spend 30 minutes. Am I gonna go back to this game obsessively? Probably not. But it's fun, it's silly, it's fast paced. There's some cool levels that you get to like run through. There's like an arcade level in this one, which is cool.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing about this game was that my dad was in town when I was playing it, and he watched me play it. Yeah. And he's like naming every single one of these Hot Wheels cars. And he's like, oh yeah, it's that one. I had one of those. Or like, if you were a cool kid, you had one of these for sure. It was like the cool kid's car.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted that one.
Whoa.
I'm like, how do you know all of this?
Yeah.
He gave me his lore of how he was a big Hot Wheels kid growing up. And I got shook because I thought I was a Hot Wheels kid growing up, and he's like, where do you think you got all those Hot Wheels from, son? Those are my Hot Wheels. And I was like, whoa, I thought those were my Hot Wheels that you bought me. I didn't know those were your hand-me-down classic retro certified official Hot Wheels cars from your childhood.
Yeah.
So I was pretty shook. I was pretty shook by that.
He was so sneaky about it. That's good. Again, I've been trying to figure out, like, in the future, whenever I have a kid, like, how am I going to introduce games to them? And like, maybe the sneaky method is it. Cause you were like, I like Hot Wheels. And he's like, yeah, you do.
Yep.
You know, like what if I just strategically left Super Nintendos strewn around the house? Like, oh, that old thing.
The kid's just like crawling and just walks on it a little bit, and just Mario jumps. He just hears that doink.
And he's like,
that's it.
I think I'm in now.
It's the first little serotonin bump from a video game for the kiddo.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Gonna make a ding boy out of you, yeah, kid.
And I'll make a ding boy out of you.
Famously Mulan, yeah. Mulan was really into like Satisfactory and Factorio.
Was it Mulan, or was it the hunky commander who was into those?
I mean, like, he was into them, and Mulan had to pretend to also be into Satisfactory. But I don't think she actually was.
Probably not. She's more of an action adventure, kind of like solo me person.
Yeah, a Kingdom Hearts
1v1 me. A Kingdom Heartser, or what's that sword fighting game online?
Ninhogg? Is that what you're thinking of?
Ninhogg? No, it's something else. It's like
Chivalry?
No, it's like a bunch of different like medieval or otherwise types of warriors, and you can all fight each other.
I think it's Burnout Paradise is what you're thinking of, David.
You're right. It's Burnout. It's actually Disco Elysium.
the cop CRPG. I couldn't believe that I couldn't remember what the fuck that was.
I thought I was giving you
You described exactly what the game was, and my brain was like, I could only conjure Max Payne. That's truly it.
To be fair, I couldn't think of it either, so all's the same. But
Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. Good.
It was really fun learning about my dad's life through Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. Thank you, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2.
Thank you, Hot Wheels
You brought
Unleashed.
my dad and I closer together. What a beautiful thing.
Yeah, wow.
Still been playing a lot of Metaphor Refantazio.
Yeah.
Not a shocker. It's still very good. I can't remember, or probably Baldur's Gate 3 is the last game that's kept me this enthralled for this long.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last single player game that's kept me this enthralled for this long. Or a game that I've played single player, I should say, because I've only ever played Baldur's Gate or the Divinities with Mallory.
Oh yeah,
my
true.
partner.
Forgot about that.
So this is a very different experience going through it solo dolo. But I don't know what else to say about this game except that it's just still fantastic. All of the character, all of the different paths that the character storylines are taking are very satisfying and fun.
Mm-hmm.
The combat still slaps. It somehow gets more interesting the deeper you get into it. We were talking about a little bit about this earlier, and just how many archetypes you unlock for the different characters, and what archetypes you choose to unlock for different characters, and how far you choose to level up those archetypes for that character to give them certain skills or spells that can make their other like main archetype that you want them to have stronger for certain situations, right?
Yeah.
So there is really just a lot of customization and different ways that you can play the game that, you know, even though it's a very written story, I would be hard pressed to find too many people having the exact same layout of archetypes and skills going on, just because there are so many options. So it really gives you a sense of variety and a sense of freedom in that way in this game, as opposed to giving you that freedom with, you know, choosing where to go story-wise or to like explore in an open world. It's a very mechanical freedom they give you in this game, which is very different. I don't know if I've experienced this before, or I can't really remember something that I've experienced that sort of sensation before in a game. Yeah. But I really enjoy it. It's great. It's just so customizable. It's really, really good.
I think we were talking about this prior to starting, but like Octopath 2 is really the only thing that I can think of where it's like, I really dug into the mechanics of that RPG in a way that I typically don't in a lot of RPGs.
Sure.
I pretty frequently will just like try and get the best equipment I possibly can and like make the character what it looks like the game wants me to make them. You know, like if they give me a character with some kind of customization as far as class goes, and like they have a little hood on and a staff, I'm like, sorry, bucko, like you are going to be a mage. It doesn't really matter. Like, especially in like a lot of games will give you choices. I'm kind of thinking about like something like Final Fantasy X where you have the like sphere grid and you can kind of at a certain point go off in any direction and make each character play pretty differently. But a lot of the time, like that stuff almost overwhelms me and I'm like, I'm just going to kind of take this down the middle, frankly. Whereas this one, it really encourages you to like, I don't know, just fuck around, see what works. Like, see if this spell works good on this class, or like, I think they do a good job of adding the like quest for more, where it's like, hey, you have to get this class up to this level if you want to like increase your relationship with more, which is cool. Cause oftentimes those classes are the ones where I'm like, I don't think I would have used that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I wouldn't have like stuck with it as long as I did.
But then you start to see like, oh, I see how this class plays. Yes. I see the utility of these different spells you have. And then you start going like, ooh, should I teach this to this other character and level them up so that they can synergize in this different cool way that I'm thinking about now? So yeah, it's very cool that they're able to like tickle your curiosity through the actual just gameplay mechanics of this game, because I've never I don't play as many RPGs as you. I just haven't had that experience with a lot of RPGs in the past, because that's always been kind of like, for me, the more rote portion of playing an RPG is the action. It was usually at least like Final Fantasy back in the day, in like PS1, PS2 era, pretty straight down the middle, bare bones. You just take actions and you just hope that, and you just manage your items and your mana and don't die, essentially, and just level up in between. But this has so many fun different riffs that it just is so much more engaging for me. Yeah, really well done. The
combat of those old RPGs, like a lot of the time just came down to attrition. Like, exactly, can I survive long enough to beat this guy?
Yeah, do I have enough heals to get through this?
Yeah, enough heals, and like, do I have a high enough health pool that I won't just immediately die in this fight?
And whereas, if I don't, I just got to go grind.
right. And I think, smartly, a lot of these games like this and Octopath are like, listen, you probably do, like, leveling up helps, but there is more to it than that. Like, if you're really bashing your head against the wall, there's like a couple of different things you can try before it's just like, you just need to level up, you know? Like, try different archetypes or go to the information broker. I'm glad that they can offer something different as a way to approach these problems rather than just like go grind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're just talking about it's the year of the RPG, and I just feel like there's been so many different ways that different developers have been advancing RPGs, not just narratively, but gameplay mechanic wise. And I think it's probably something that I just had a blind spot to for a long time, because RPGs in particular just were not my jam when I was a kid, largely because of the monotony of the combat. But I'm just loving experiencing and seeing what people have changed over the course of decades now to this genre. So yeah, very good. And the last other game that I would like to talk about that I just started playing like yesterday and today, pretty new, is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Hell yeah. You had said that there's a game that might be on both of our lists. This is not the one that I picked up.
This is not. Okay.
No, but I'm interested to hear, because I've heard like pretty good shit about it.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about this game when it first got announced.
Are you an indie freak? Do you like the Jones?
I am not an indie freak. I am an indie enjoyer. I enjoy Indiana Jones movies. I would not say the most recent two were good.
I think the last one was all right.
They were films.
I wasn't crazy about them. I would hesitate to call them bad, but like they're
the one
not
with Shia LaBeouf was not a good movie.
Yeah, it was not great. Yeah, Crystal Skull was a little rough. I'm not crazy about the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, I didn't see the one with Fleabag.
Yes,
she was in it, right?
She was. It was closer to a good Indiana Jones movie, but I think just like it's hard to make a movie that good out of the context of the moment that it was in anymore. Yeah. To me, it just felt like it's okay. Like we can do something else. You know,
we can move on from Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Right. But I definitely think that this game taps into all of the good things about those early Indiana Jones movies.
Okay.
It's it's made by Machine Games, who did the Wolfenstein games most recently, and I really liked those games when they first came out.
Yeah,
and so I can definitely see like the common DNA in there, but this is not. And of course, the punching Nazis element of both of those games, but this is much more of like an adventure game with some action components as opposed to like a first person shooter, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty, I think, not honest, but it respects the legacy of, I think, what the films were trying to do, which is like a rip-roaring adventure with this guy who just uses his smarts and just his everymanness to get through these situations, right? And that comes through well in this game, and that there's some parts of it that feel almost like I don't know if it might be going too far to say that they feel like a Prey or something like that, like a sim sort of deal, but they give you a lot of different ways to get through a situation, and you just have to figure out you have to choose and figure out what's best for you, which is fun. Tonally, it's very good. Definitely feels like the original movies, and I think that I'm having a lot of fun playing it, and it feels like probably the best Indiana Jones story that I've experienced in quite some time that's new, which is also fun that they're able to do that, right? Because like I mentioned before, I was not a big fan of either of the most recent movies, but I still think there are a lot of good stories to be had with this character.
Sure.
And I think it's great that they're exploring that through the medium of video games now instead of film. And I think they've translated it over quite nicely. It gives me a lot of kind of like, a very different tones, but Escape to Butcher Bay from Butcher Bay Chronicles of Riddick is the thing that comes to mind the most often.
Interesting.
Just because of how you interact and experience the world for the first person. You can fight, you can do some combat with your whip, you're exploring, you're sneaking, there's gunplay, but it's really not an emphasis, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting type of game. I don't know if there's a lot of games that strike this specific chord between sleuthing, stealth, adventure that I've played in quite some time. It's kind of refreshing in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so bizarre. Like I've truly, I don't know almost anything about this game. Like I was kind of like, some games I'm just like, you know what, I'll probably play that at some point, like it looks good enough. It looks interesting. I want to see, like, I trust Machine Games. And so it's like, I'll probably pick that up at some point. And so for this one, that was the case where I just know nothing about it. And, blindfolded, if you asked me to describe an Indiana Jones game, I'd be like, it's probably going to be like Uncharted or like the Tomb Raider games or something like that. And so like Riddick is such a pull, but I'm sure I understand what you're saying. Cause like Riddick was also, if I'm remembering it correctly, or at least what it felt like at the time, was there was a little bit of variety with how you could approach a lot of different situations. Yeah. Which is cool. And like, I don't know if they could do like a Prey sort of situation. That seems like kind of a tall order for an Indiana Jones game, but like,
unless you really lean into the occult, but yeah.
And so that's interesting to hear that it's like almost encroaching on the immersive sim thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised by it so far. And like, I have not played a lot of this game so far, so I can't say like definitively like, yes, this is what it is. So it might change and become much more actiony later on. I don't know. Yeah. But so far I've been very pleasantly surprised by this game. And I think I got sold on it when I first saw that trailer with the Nazi guy who was just like pontificating on that boat, that submarine that was on the side of a cliff or something. I was like, okay, this looks wild and weird, and I'm here for it. Yeah, I
would love to say I know which one you're talking about, but again, I didn't know shit from chat about this game. I don't know.
You didn't know nothing about this game, but it's fun. It's worth a look, and that's also cool. Just for the tutorial level alone, because the tutorial level is the very famous Indiana Jones scene of getting the golden idol and then running away from the boulder.
Yeah, I mean, that rocks. That's a pretty good decision to just be like, it, like.
Yeah, they just do it as a dream sequence, and it's just like, this is how you learn how to play the game. And I was like,
that's fun.
Hell yeah, that's great.
Yeah, cool. That's fun. It's on Game Pass, isn't it?
It is. That's also why I picked it up.
Yeah, sure.
Just like, give it a shot.
Yeah, I think I will do that. Wow,
give it a whirl.
Give it a whirl.
Anyways, that's everything I've been playing. Chase, what have you been playing?
I got 2, maybe 3 games, depending on how long 2 of them take.
All right, let's hear it.
Would you like, David?
Ooh. R.L. Stein.
Choose your own adventure. Would you like Souls or Sagas?
Give me Souls.
Okay. All right. I have been playing a game called 9 Souls, David.
That's what I thought.
This was the one that I was like, I wonder if you were also playing this.
I also might have downloaded this one.
I'm here to tell you, David, you should play this video game.
It's good.
It's very good. So Nine Souls is a game that came out, I think in like May. It's actually been out for kind of a lot of the year. It was made by Red Candle Games, and there's a lot about it. I think the thing to start with is like it initially shows you this character who they'll go on to reveal is named Yi in what seems to be the past. And he's like kind of getting his ass kicked by someone. You don't know who.
Sure.
They knock him off a cliff and he's like maybe left for dead down there. And then some kind of like tree thing like pulls him in and seems to like grasp him in a way. And then you cut what looks to be like maybe a while in the future. It's pretty unclear how long it's been, but it shows Yi interacting with this like what looks like maybe kind of a human kid. Yi's like this kind of cat fox thing.
Yeah.
And the kid looks human. And they seem to be friends, like they're talking to each other, and the kid's making mention of some like ritual that's going to happen soon. And you get introduced to like essentially the mechanics of the game at this point, where they're like, here's how to jump, here's how to run up this kind of wall or hit stuff. And they lead you through this village. You like talk to a bunch of people, and like they're all like, "Yay, it's the day of the ritual. It's all very exciting." And there's like kind of tender scene where you're reading this kid like essentially like a bedtime story as well that it cuts to. And he's like, "Hey, like I don't know if I'm going to be able to hear this for a while. I'm going to go join my parents soon after this ritual, and like it's I might not see you for a long time."
Sure.
Yi seems like stressed out about this, like not feeling good about it. And what ends up happening is you roll up to this like ritual site, and there's these villagers who clearly they're in like some kind of like ritual garb, like they're in like kind of not a robe, but just like simple clothing.
Sure.
And they step up to the ritual thing, and there's two in front of the kid that you're like familiar with. And they like stand on this kind of pedestal, and this like very futuristic machine looking thing like sort of grabs them by the shoulders and like lifts them up, and then kind of starts spinning a little bit, and then their body detaches from their head and they fall down.
What?
Yeah, they're the body seemingly going into the like receptacle of this like machine somehow.
Oh no.
And it's not like gory. It doesn't like really zoom in on any of that, but like you see what happens and you're like, "Oh no, dude."
But it's
like,
disturbing.
Yes, yeah, it's disturbing. Yes. Again, a lot of things clarifying at once of like, "Oh, his parents are dead." And they must have gone through this ritual at some point and they're gone now.
Yeah.
And once the kid steps up to it after having watched another one, and sure enough, the same thing happening, Yi sort of like leaps into the air and grabs him out of the machine. And he's like, the kid's like, "Well, like what's going on? Like, why are you doing this?" And Yi's like, "I have to go. Like, I'm sorry." And then he himself like hops into this like hole where the ritual was like dumping people, right?
Well,
and the tone and sort of the visual design all changes into like this kind of hyper futuristic technology sort of thing going on.
Well,
and shit's like very different down there, right? So that's kind of where the story kicks off. And the kind of wider thing that they start to poke at is that like Yi is trying to seek revenge for something. It's unclear what, but he is fighting against these 9 souls, these people from his past. It's kind of unclear what their deal is, but that they're the ones who are keeping this like ritual going, and that they have wronged him somehow in the past. And so essentially it's like, Kill Bill, but for 9 people,
That's cool.
It is cool. And so like the setup, I will say, like really worked for me. I thought it was like oftentimes, and I haven't mentioned it yet, but this is like very much a side-scrolling Metroidvania, like that style of game. And I feel like sometimes the setups can be very sparse, and that works for some games, right? Like I think for like obviously Hollow Knight, that works really well. I think even for Blasphemous, it works very well, where they're like just giving you like broad strokes of like what's happening in this world. And for both of those, it kind of leads you along of you're like, I really want to know what's happening in this space. But with some of them, it just kind of is like, I don't have a lot to go on, like I don't really know what I'm doing here. And I need something, especially in the early part of a Metroidvania where it's like, you're just supposed to kind of get lost for a little while. I need something to pull me along. And so like the story that they're setting up here and just the setting, like I found very cool. It's almost like Horizon Zero Dawn with like the kind of like old school society living on the surface, and then like hyper futuristic technology below.
Sure.
Which I think is very good. And I think looking at it, I wouldn't blame you if you said like, "Hey, this looks like Hollow Knight." And I think it does. Like visually, just kind of the movement, it all looks like, that's a game that was probably influenced by Hollow Knight. And you would also say, "Hey, that literally has souls in the name. I bet this is a Dark Souls game." and you're close. But I would say that this is much more a Sekiro game.
Ooh, okay.
That the combat feels way more like Sekiro to me.
I like that.
It's really cool where a lot of the game isn't necessarily a Dark Souls game. And I started playing it like a Dark Souls game of like hit, dodge, hit, roll, like that kind of style. And that works, but they want you to parry so much more. Sure. And there's a little like parry button on the shoulder button. Again, it looks so sick because Yi doesn't use his like sword to parry. He uses his hand and just like puts it in a stance such that it just like blasts the attack away. Very cool, very sick. And it's not only is like that it wants you to do it, but the way that it supports that is that you have these moves that you can only use once you've parried. Like not necessarily a counter, but like it's a resource that refills. And so if you parry something, then you can start doing these other moves. And it doesn't just like respawn on its own. You have to parry. It's not like it comes back after a certain amount of time. And so like the game is telling you like, come on, like you need to start parrying, which
figure it out. Yeah.
Which is again, very Sekiro. And I think that they give you a long time to figure out like, okay, I need to like look for how these enemies are like, what's the word? Broadcasting their attacks prior to attacking. And they're very simple in the beginning, right? Like it's a big guy with a big sword and his blade kind of like blinks before he's about to hit you, Yeah. And so you just need to learn the timing. And then pretty shortly after that, they're like, okay, that's fine. But now you have a mid-air parry as well. And there are some attacks that if you're standing on the ground and you try to parry, you can't. But if you are in the midair and you parry, you can. And it will sort of like bounce you off their head, right? And all of that initially, it starts to feel like, maybe I've seen this before. Maybe it's all kind of, I've seen mechanics like this before. But when it starts to kind of like cross mechanics together and it's like, here's a boss who has enough things that you need to parry and enough things that you need to jump and parry. It like you just immediately start to see the Matrix and you're like, oh my God, this is like very, very good. And so like, I think alone, all of these mechanics are like, this is shit that I've seen in Metroidvanias before. The setting is like interesting for sure, but like, I've seen stuff like it prior, but just the way that they put everything together, like super duper works. It just really starts to come together. And I think just like having the very clear, concise goal of like, beat the 9 bosses, like that works for me.
Shout out the Colossus kind of.
Yeah. Similar concept of like, just, how many there are going to be and that is your goal. You must dispatch with them. What was that game that we played? I think it was this year where you had like just the bow and arrow.
Titan Souls.
Yes. Feels kind of similar of like.
That was a fun game.
Yeah, it was very fun. Feels similar in the way that they broadcast to you very early what you are going to need to do. And like, it's sort of just a process of, all right, now let's go do it. Almost Mega Man in a way, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I'm like really loving it so far. Again, I was talking to you about this prior to us hopping on the call, or us starting to record, but I feel like I'm going to need a category of games of, I just started playing this. Please forgive me if this is actually really good. Yeah. And it would have shown up higher on my list had I played more. Because this is seemingly one of them. Right now, I can really see how like once they start adding even more shit, it's just going to be so good. Cause like already the bosses are amazing. And if they start to kind of hammer on like, what if they're all really hard like this? It's going to be good, right? Like the satisfaction of beating Lady Butterfly the first time level good of like, man, so I am a god at this game. It's hard to do. Like that is a very hard design challenge of like making something hard enough that when you beat it, you feel very satisfied, but not just being like crushingly difficult, So far it is doing that. And so I'm very like super duper impressed. This was another one of those games that was on the list of the Indie Game Awards and was one of the ones that was nominated for Game of the Year. And I'm like, well, I gotta play that. I'm not shocked that it made it onto their Game of the Year list. Cause it's like,
pretty good.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm really, really impressed with this one. It's definitely up my alley, like these, I like these kinds of games for sure. And I think the like understated level of violence in here kind of works for me too, where it is like unsettling in a way rather than like jarring in a way that some violence can be, Last of Us 2 is over the fucking top with its violence. And I think it is intentional in that where it's like really showing it to you right in your face. But this one, like it is violent, but in a way where it's like quiet and scary. You know, like that is very terrifying to me. And so, yeah, it's really good. Really enjoying it.
Oh yeah, that game sounds fun. I'm gonna have to play that.
It's on Game Pass, so like,
yeah, like I said, I downloaded it.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, I feel like I'm just full up on games right now. I don't know if there's any more room at the end. Otherwise, something is just going to get set to the side, and that's not good.
I mean, that's part of the problem, and I will explain to you with yet another game that I'm about to talk about why that is still a problem. I also downloaded the demo, played all of it, and promptly bought because I know I'm going to play the rest of it. Romancing Saga 2. David.
Oh, what is this?
This is another RPG.
Romancing Saga 2. So is it like a dating sim RPG?
Not at all. Not even close. It is a game. So the full title is Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven Review. This is a game in the Romancing Saga series and broadly just the Saga series.
Okay.
Which is, I have played none of these. 0 of these games. There's like the Romancing Saga, there's Saga Frontier, Unlimited Saga, Emperor Saga, all these different games. Even the Final Fantasy Legend games, I don't know if you ever fucked with those. Those were Final Fantasy games for the Game Boy, like just the straight up Game Boy.
Oh, okay.
Very different from the like regular Final Fantasy games. But this is like a top to bottom full blown remake of Romancing Saga 2, which originally came out in 1993. Came out a long time ago for the SNES. If I'm not mistaken, it was largely a Japan only release as well. Like it's for the Super Famicom came out in 93, but then I'm looking, it looks like the first release of it. Yeah, the first release of it in the States was in 2016 on iOS. So like it took a long time to get over here, but this version of it, again, top to bottom, total remake. And I had heard good stuff about it. Again, this was one I saw on Steam that was like overwhelmingly positive. And I was like, well, fuck, like I got to check that out. So I downloaded the demo on PlayStation and it starts like very simple, right? Like you are playing as this prince named Gerard and you're out on an adventure with your dad, Emperor Leon. And Gerard is not cool. He is like pretty weak. And not like a dweeb per se, but just like he is not the hero of legend yet, you know? Whereas your dad absolutely beats ass. And you are shown this. Emperor Leon, you are shown this like in the combat, which I really appreciate. Like you'll be fighting someone and like Gerard does nothing to Leon, like or to the enemies. And Leon comes over there and just like wipes the floor with these guys. This is very much turn-based combat. And I would say more in the style of like kind of a classic RPG. There are some wrinkles to that, and I'll kind of touch on some of that in a second. But you're largely just going through this dungeon and beating baddies and shit. The point being that your dad is way stronger than you, and you're kind of a wimp. So eventually you go back to the like castle town. You meet up with your brother Victor, who is like beefy and brawny and tough and is wearing fucking cool armor. And he's like, Gerard, get back to the fucking library, you dork. Like, leave this shit to me, dude.
Just bullying his brother.
Yes, yeah. Like, it doesn't seem necessarily like evil, but just like you're gonna hurt yourself out there, dude. Like you're not the hero that I think you're
not that guy.
Yes, yeah. And the story progresses and like, some wider plot stuff comes up. I will say that they have this framing device of the 7 heroes, I think it is. And it's weird because the way they're describing them, they're like, yeah, these 7 old heroes like came and kicked ass and it was cool. But like the visual framing on them is very scary and like kind of foreboding in a way. And then eventually one of them you encounter and he is like a full blown demon, like, whoa, who is trying to like really fuck shit up. And so they have this tension set up immediately of like, we have these 7 heroes, but they're like not good. They're like not good people. And they seem to maybe be like returning in the current realm.
Okay.
So all of that I love.
That's fun.
It is very cool. Yeah. I like their approach there. Yeah. You eventually get introduced to some other like friends and compatriots of
not
Emperor.
Demons.
Not demons, actual friends who are like gonna fight with you. They also introduced this like positioning system in the battle. So it's like something where like you can keep people on like the front line or the mid line or the back line, all this sort of stuff. And it's not something super novel. Like I've seen positioning in RPGs before, but the way that they do it is novel and I think fun, especially because like it almost does force you to be like, okay, I need to have like a tank in the front and like have them actually play that role where they're maybe not all that strong, but like they just need to be able to take a hit pretty regularly. It feels closer to a like MMO to me in the way that I'm experiencing the combat rather than like, you know, Persona or something like that, where there's some people who are tougher, but not ones where I'm like, you need to be taking all the damage, you know?
Yeah.
So that's fun. It's very cool. Some shit breaks bad, which I won't spoil. Of course, like that's it's the way it goes. It's the nature of a story. And
what happens to daddy?
Yeah. Yeah. And some things happen and there are like magical implications to what's going on in a way that I find very cool. And
magical implications. It's a funny term.
Yes. Yeah. You start playing as Gerard a little bit more earnestly, and you also get to play as the final emperor as well.
Whoa.
Who is the person that you've like named at the beginning of the game.
Oh.
And so there's this kind of back and forth that starts to play between Gerard and the final emperor. So there's this big swath of time in between there that like they're kind of, you know, discussing in the game itself, which I think is very fun, very cool. So what about this game? It is like beautiful. It looks so fucking good. It reminds me a lot of Dragon Quest with just like a little bit less Toriyama influence.
Sure.
Which on its face, you might say like, that actually sounds stupid because Toriyama rocks.
Need more Toriyama.
Which he does. But I do think it is really cool to see like another kind of take on what I would consider like sort of classic fantasy approach, or at least like Japanese fantasy in a way. It just looks amazing. Like I think it looks really, really cool. So I love that much of it. The voice acting, pretty fucking good. I was again, I'm always shocked when an RPG has very good voice acting, but like I'm enjoying that a lot. And I think just like the tone of the world is cool. I'm like having a good time with that. It's just
the tone?
I think like again in a similar fashion to Dragon Quest, it feels like they're doing a lot of classic fantasy stuff, but with little twists and turns on the edges that make it feel like, hey, that's a novel thing that we're doing. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this one. And I was talking to Brendan from Into the Aether recently about this, and he's like, this feels like a big January game. And I'm like, absolutely. Like this is a game that after I'm done trying to catch up with all of the shit from 2024 to talk about GOTY, I can just sink like 40 to 50 hours into this. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like very cool, very fun. I don't have like a ton to say about it other than that yet, but it looks great. I'm having a good time with it. Combat's good. And yeah, I'll see you in January, Romancing Saga.
I got you penciled in for January. It's going to be a big month.
However, David,
yes,
we've got time for a third game.
Let's hear it.
I downloaded the demo and played Dynasty Warriors Origins, David.
Oh, nice. There's a demo out, huh?
There's a demo out.
Is the game out, or is it just the demo right now?
No, the game mercifully comes out next year. Pretty early. I think it's another like game that actually comes out in January. A little bit of history. I am a Dynasty Warriors freak.
Yeah.
Freak. It's the only word that is appropriate. I'm not an obsessive Dynasty Warriors freak. Like I'm not going to sit here and say like I've played every inch of every game, but like the model of let's play the same fucking battles in these games over and over and over again, I'm into. Like it works for me. And so
Dynasty Warriors apologist.
I am a Dynasty Warriors apologist. I really fucked with the Gundam Dynasty Warriors games that came out for a while there. That was good as hell. I did play almost all of those. I loved that.
Chase is essentially state media for Dynasty Warriors games.
I'm big Dynasty. Yeah. What's up, guys? I've got a sponsorship with my boy Guan Yu. We're here to talk about the best Dynasty Warrior games of 2024. Stay tuned. But I've played almost all of them, at least a little bit. My love for them started, I think it was Dynasty Warriors 2 or 3. It was the first one that came out on PlayStation 2, at launch. And for better or worse, the game is largely unchanged since then. Most of the games that came out after that were like so similar to that exact formula. And like, that's fine, I think. Like, there are plenty of games that don't change up that much, but like, I will say it had been a long time since that has come out. That's like 20 years old at this point. And I think outside of the sort of interesting stuff that they were doing with like the Dynasty Warriors Zelda games, the like, was that Age of Calamity? Was that the one that they put out?
Yeah.
There were two of them. And like it was interesting. They were doing different stuff with it that I was like, hey, like this is they're experimenting and trying new stuff.
They were fun. I enjoyed those games. Or I played the first one.
I would say 2 is pretty good. It's like it integrated more of like what made Breath of the Wild interesting. Like there are more mechanics in it outside of just like, don't you want to play as Linkle? You know?
Yeah.
And I also really liked, was it Three Fates, the Fire Emblem Dynasty Warriors collaboration?
Oh, sure.
I thought that was pretty good. Like it wasn't the best game I'd ever played, and certainly wasn't like Three Houses, but like not a bad Dynasty Warriors game. And I think that this game series relies on similar stuff that like Earth Defense Force does, where it's like, you kind of want to just turn your brain off a little bit and fight. And like, that's okay. Like they make that very good. However, the previous entry in the Dynasty Warriors series was, and listen, my heart is open. I'm fully Podtimistic and I love video games. Yeah. It was ass. It was truly bad. Like I did not like it. They essentially tried to make it...
The amount of horse riding sounded so bad.
It was there. Like I struggled to find a thing about it that I was like, that's pretty good. It was like they were attempting to do an open world game, which like on its face, I'm like, okay, I think conceptually I'm with you because like China's a big place. So like that could be cool. Right. Mm-hmm. But it was just so poorly executed. And I was always just like, I don't think I want to be playing this game anymore. Like the UI, I've said before, was inscrutable. It remains unscrutable. I really didn't have a lot of like fun playing it. And so like, it was a real shame because I was like, man, I hope that they don't just take the lesson that they should never change Dynasty Warriors, because like, it's like, you know, a friend in your 20s or something like that, who's like, they've never like talked to somebody who's a stranger or something like that to like make a new friend or to, you know, try and like hit up someone they think is cute. And then the one time they do, it just like explodes in their face and they're like, I'm never doing that again. You know, like, it's like, no, like just please, it's not always this bad. And so I was kind of like, man, I hope that Origins is good. I hope that it's something new. And David, I'm here to say Origins beats ass. It's actually very, very good.
All right, cool.
I can't speak to the quality of the entire game just because it's a demo, but like, I think that there is both a return to form and experimentation going on here that I'm like, hey, I think you guys might have cracked it for what like a good Dynasty Warriors games looks like now. Essentially like the core part of the game of just running around and fighting dudes, very much here, which like, I think you need that. If you're going to make a Dynasty Warriors game, like just having a shitload of guys be on the field and fighting them, I think you gotta have that. That's just part of the game.
It wouldn't be Dynasty Warriors otherwise.
I don't think so. Yeah. And so I'm glad they retained that. However, they changed the combat a little bit, and I think in really good ways, where it's just a little weightier when you're fighting like the enemy generals and stuff. They have like, for lack of a better word, like a stance meter.
Okay.
And
like Sekiro?
Kind of a little Sekiro. You're not parrying most of the time, but you're just like trying to build up enough damage to their stamina meter to the point where you can do like a big attack on them. And a lot of what they want you to do is dodge, right? Like dodging is a big part of Dynasty Warriors, which for anybody who hasn't played these games before, it simply really has not been part of the series, like for most of it, you know? And so like, I think even at the edges, just changing a little bit, like made the combat suddenly feel like way more urgent than it did. Like most of the time when I was playing other Dynasty Warriors games, it's like, it's kind of an afterthought of like, well, I'm just going to go beat Guan Yu's ass or fucking tear down Hulao Gate. You know, like it's all coming down. It's no big deal. But because they've made it a little bit harder and they want you to dodge, like suddenly I was kind of getting beat up and I'm like, okay, now this I like. I want them to challenge me a little bit.
Hurt me, Dynasty Warriors.
Hurt me, Lubu. Come on. and they did. And so it forced me to learn a little bit of what they're like doing now. They also have like essentially like homies that follow you around, and you can essentially do like, what's the right word for them? Like kind of moves that they have. So sometimes you'll be able to like order them to, you know, fire arrows at this like one area directly in front of you, or like charge into the line or something like that to either like kind of fuck up a general or just like take some other guys out. And initially I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be all that interested in using that mechanic, but like pretty quickly, because I was getting my ass kicked, I was like, okay, maybe I should check that out. And then immediately paid off of just like, it was very helpful to suddenly be able to be like, can you guys just handle some of that for a second while like I like back off this fight? So all of that, very good. I hesitate to compare it to a Souls game because like it's not nearly as complicated, but I think it is relying on a certain satisfaction from Souls game that I think is similar. You know, like you do have to be a little bit more patient and you need to be a little bit more observant of the people that you're fighting in the way that I think just drives engagement. Like I think I'm more engaged in playing the game when that's going on. Mm-hmm. They also have like almost RPG shit going on where like between battles you go and like talk to other like generals and stuff.
Can you befriend these generals?
I think you can befriend them a little bit.
Can you kiss them?
If I can fucking kiss Cow, dude, it's over. It's going to be fucking game of the year next year. It's going to be over.
My dream for 20 years. This cow has been so elusive.
They never let me kiss Cow. But I doubt that they will do that. However, I do appreciate that they're letting me kind of like talk to these people and see what's up. It like almost reminds me of Yakuza in the way where you can kind of just roll up and be like, hey, what's going on with you? There's also a very cool overworld that they have got that it seems to, I didn't like get super deep into that, but there seems to be a certain amount of like strategy that you need to be operating with, which I was like, that's great. I like that too. I appreciate that that's in there. Mm-hmm. You also play as the Wanderer, who it just made him so hot. He's so hot.
He's a hot guy, huh?
He's a hot guy. And he's not like a historical figure. They're just like, what if instead of playing as one of these historical Chinese warriors, you play as a hot fake guy? And I'm like, okay, I think I'm in. I think I want to do that.
You go.
So I'm loving all that. I think it really works. And I think just based on the name of the game literally being Origins, I feel like they're looking at this as like, let's take a reset and figure out like, what does this game look like now? What does it look like in 2024? Mm-hmm. Or in their case, it'll be 2025 when this comes out. And I am excited to like see like, is this it? Because I think if you nail this is like a good version of Dynasty Warriors. Like, I feel like it's very hard to make a good brain off game, you know, like, because you want it to hit that very tight rope of like, I need it to be engaging enough that you're not just like bored out of your mind.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be so demanding that you're like, I can't even like think while I'm playing this game. It's so stressful, you know, like actual Sekiro is like the opposite of a brain off game. Your brain needs to be like in levels that it never has been before.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you wanted to kind of hit this line. And I think over time, the brain off part of Dynasty Warriors has moved closer to just like boredom. Like just like, I don't feel that engaged with this game. And so I'm glad to see that they're reassessing that. And I hope that the Origins here is sort of a signal that they're maybe going to look at like, what does the series look like after this? How do we continue this onward? Or is this just like, this is just Dynasty Warriors now and they're gonna, you know, try other shit or whatever? Because again, I'm okay if you want to put out another Gundam Dynasty Warriors, you guys. I think that's pretty fun.
Gundam Dynasty Warriors Origin. You play as a hot robot.
David, you telling me the Zaku 2 is not hot? Those huge calf muscles?
Those Zakos be Zakin, baby.
What that Zaku do?
What that Zaku do? This means nothing.
It doesn't. No, it sure doesn't. Hey, speaking of old anime, David, it's the Manga Minute.
Ooh, all right.
It's the minute where I have a minute to talk about manga. I read Akira, David.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let me tell you, shit bangs. It's
shit
very
bangs.
good. It's very, very good.
Have you seen the movie?
I have seen the movie. I saw the movie a while ago. I feel like I saw that in like high school or something.
Is one better than the other?
I'm hard pressed to say. The movie is like truly incredible and I think is like responsible for some of like the explosion in anime in general.
Sure.
And so like, I don't think I can like find a lot of issues with that at all. I will say if you're like, it feels like the difference of someone who's like, I can't watch the theatrical release of The Lord of the Rings, you know, like I have to watch the extended edition.
Sure.
It feels like that, but for manga where like you get so much more of what's going on in this world in the manga than you do in the anime. And like, it still works. I think like either one of those are still like really effective works, but like I really appreciated being able to like see different characters and see different sides of things that I was not expecting. I will say Tetsuo fucking sucks in the manga. In the anime, it's like, he's this big, like kind of evil character, but you also like kind of empathize with him. You're like, he's got this inferiority complex and like, he's all like bummed out because Kaneda is like clearly the cooler guy in the biker gang. And like that has driven him to be shitty. But in the manga, he's just bad. He's just like sucks. A bad guy. And so like I had a lot less sympathy for him in there. But I think that they build in a lot of other like complicated characters in a way where it doesn't feel like I was hurting for like sympathetic, maybe bad guys. Nice. But shit's just it's so fucking good. It looks so cool.
Good drawings, huh? Good artwork.
Man, the art is so good. That like hyper detail that they have in the anime is also present in the manga. It's the same guy who like produced or like drew the manga that was like involved in the movie.
Yeah.
And so like the style is very similar. And so like that again, that hyper detail is just so present and so fucking cool. I was crazy about it. Anyway, so that's Akira. It's very good. And that, David, will bring me to my Podtimistic thing of the week.
Which is?
It's games reinventing themselves.
I love it.
When they're like, what if we're done with the past? What if we try something new and something different?
Hard to stick that landing.
It's very hard to stick that landing. I think a lot of games try this and don't do it very well. I feel like it's been happening more and more because games are just like old enough that like there are series that even though they aren't like the most popular thing in the world, it's like quietly they're like, yeah, it's been around for 30 years, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm happy that Dynasty Warriors is checking this out. It was why it kind of partially made Fire Emblem Three Houses such a fun thing of like, whoa, this is not what Fire Emblem used to be. They're kind of like trying something new here. And I like that a lot. I think the much easier example is God of War 2018, where it's like totally different. We're a different thing now. While also still very much like nodding, like here's what this series used to be. Yeah, it's hard to do. And I think you also see a lot of games sort of resting on their laurels in a way too. I hesitate to really like talk a lot of shit, but like I feel like that most recent Diablo was like, this is Diablo. It is very much Diablo, you know, like, and I think that there is a hesitation to like upset longtime fans. And I get that. Like, you don't want to just like totally abandon the people who have like made your game exciting. But I think that there's a big reluctance to be like, let's try something different. And whenever a game company can do that, it's just chef's kiss. Chef's kiss, David. Do you have something fueling your sense of optimism, David?
I do. It's a good running gag.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Most recently, we were talking about it before in Metaphor. Refantazio, Hulkenberg being a foodie, but just for nasty, nasty food.
Yeah. Loves to eat,
but like anything. Yeah. And then people are like, how can you eat this right now? This is disgusting. It's like, this is a delicacy. What is wrong with you people? Don't you taste the squish of this flavor right now? It's so disgusting, but delicious. It's acidic. It's great.
I feel like person who likes food is a very common trope in like anime and manga and like Japanese video games and shit like that. But I appreciate that Hulkenberg like really goes the extra mile. And she's like, it's not like, I kind of like most food, you know, like
it's not just good food. It's all food.
I really like all of this shit. She is the video game Podtimism, but for food in Metaphor.
she absolutely is. I think that's why I appreciate it so much. She just does it so well.
But running gags,
running gags. Patches. That's a good running gag.
Dude, I'm a Patches hater. I'm a
I hate Patches.
Big Patches hater. I don't know why the internet's like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, Patches. I'm always like, this freak. What is he doing here? Whenever he shows up in a Souls game, I'm like, not this guy again.
I thought we taught you this lesson before, old man.
How many times, old man? I'm going to kick your ass. Because, like, you know he's going to betray you very soon. And he's like, I'm a little scampish little guy. I would never betray you. And then, of course, pushes you in the pit. I don't like Patches. I'm a big Patches hater.
You're a big Patches hater. I get it. But I think people like him because he is like a returning gag.
Return something cooler. Return a nice better. Guy. I'm glad that he's in most of these games. I think it's hilarious that he is. But I'm always like, oh, great Patches. Oh, great Patches.
Patches is here. Time to just murder him immediately.
That's always what happens. I've learned my lesson too many times. I'm like, you're not going to be a good guy. And like, I think partially, David, it's just that like, I want to believe he's good. I want to play the Souls game where Patches is for once good and be caught off guard and be like, wow, I'm surprised, but he's never going to be good. He's always going to be bad.
Yeah.
And he's going to get me every time. He's going to pull the football when I'm trying to kick it, you know?
He's the Lucy to your Charlie Brown.
I am Charlie Brown and he is Lucy, which is a little bit confusing because Patches is typically bald.
And Patches is in love with you in this scenario as well.
Yeah, I'm catching eyes from Patches in every one of these games, David.
I see it.
He's giving me so much attention because he just likes me.
There's nothing patchy about the amount of attention he's given you.
No. This is solid as hell.
Solid attention.
Do you want to move on to our main thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to Good Games. It's a segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gush all the things that we love about them.
You can't run away from that conversation, Chase Albee.
I most of the time, I just want us to have to sit with the depravity that we had said prior to starting this segment.
Fair enough.
That one really did. We got suggested by Tubby Custard to play
Tubby
Impossible Creatures, a game that I had literally never heard of. This is another one.
Me neither.
Tubby Custard had to say on the topic of this game, the island of Dr. Moreau as a noir RTS. Travel the world as Rex Chance and his missing father's assistant, Lucy Willing, collecting the DNA of different animals and combining them using Sigma technology to create monsters to fight for you. A great RTS with ridiculously customizable team. Yeah, this game is extremely Sigma. Before we get too far, David, can I hit you with some hot stats?
Let's hear it.
Hot stats.
Okay, so Impossible Creatures came out January 7th of 2003 for PC. And this was made by Relic Entertainment, a company that I was like, surely I've heard of them before. And like tangentially is the answer. For anybody who has played Homeworld, this is who made Homeworld, which is like a bit of a deeper cut at this point, but there's like 5 people who are like cheering at the mention of Homeworld. They also made Company of Heroes, that like World War II RTS from a while ago. There's actually a recent addition to that series, which I was like, maybe I should check that out. And then also the first Warhammer 40K Space Marine game.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Topical. Yeah. I played the other one recently, which I think was made by Saber, which is a different company, but this one, they made the first one.
Cool.
I do have a review, David, from 4players.de, which was, I assume, standing for Deutschland. So, because their review was in German.
There you go.
I took their review, I ran it through Google Translate a number of times, one language into the other, to get an artist's interpretation of what they had to say, which I will read for you, David, right now.
Let's hear it.
Unlikely animals will surprise and disappoint you. Of course, creativity is where the fun comes in. I can build my army using careful and experimental AI or friends, and the possibilities are endless. The striped version has a nice challenge from the traditional military scat and adds a whole new dimension to the style. However, after a disappointing storyline for Homeworld, the developers delivered a coherent approach to geography exploration and geography. The graphics are stunning and the user interface is intuitive. More importantly, the company, despite its best efforts, leaves behind established players like Ensemble Studios or Snow in terms of gameplay and gameplay at. And they gave that an 82 out of 100.
Well, that got really confusing at the end there. And I think the wheels started coming off.
I think their grammar truly started falling apart in a way that it usually doesn't in these.
Yeah.
I also assumed that Snow was meant to be Blizzard, given that they were talking about RTS games.
Sure. That's context clues. That's good.
Context?
I really like Unlikely Animals.
Yeah, Unlikely Animals is the great value brand of Impossible Creatures.
Yes, it's just like not impossible.
Not impossible, but
unlikely.
Like,
not
very likely.
Yeah. Animals. Right. So just like a little, like a step below each of the words from the actual game.
Yeah. It's all a lot like an order of magnitude less intense.
Exactly.
What is this game, David?
This is an RTS where I don't know if it's gimmick, but the main gameplay component of the game is that you can harvest animal DNA and then combine it with other animal DNA to create creatures like Bachitas or Chaboons. And
the fucking animal names in this game are unbelievable. They're so good.
So good. They're
all like auto-generated.
VGP names.
Absolutely.
All of them. And yeah, so you collect a different animal DNA, and then depending on what you need or what you want to do to beat the objectives of the level, you can create different animals that have different powers and abilities and stats to do different things. And there's a very kind of wacky, silly, steampunky sort of story wrapped around it, set in like the 1930s on this archipelago of islands where this mad scientist has, I don't think the scientist is mad, at least as far as I played, but a madman has taken over the islands and is running rampant with his army of scorpion tigers. Skygers or Torpians.
Yeah. Both pretty good options, I will say.
Not bad options. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You got it. There was so much more story in this game than I was expecting there to be.
I was shocked at the amount of story in this game. They really put a lot of effort into the story, and I was kind of there for it. I was interested. The main character is an absolute kind of nothing. He's a goober, like to the max. Rex Chance. He kind of reminded me of the main character from Crimson Skies. Maybe it's just 1930s dude who's just, that's who he is. But yeah, I thought the setting and the story and the conceit of it all was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was at least novel. Like I feel like RTSs usually boil down to either like very standard military fighters or like hyper sci-fi shit.
I was about to say current day military or space future military.
Right. Yeah. Which like I guess makes sense given that it's like a strategy game. You need like some kind of warring factions to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a real thrill to be like, I'm going to put a bunch of gorilla elephants against your tiger scorpions or whatever, you know, like it is bananas. And like, it's hard to overstate how fun that interface is because like initially I was like, oh, I got to make my own creatures. That kind of sucks. I don't know if I want to do that. Like conceptually it sounds fun, but I was like, this is a 2003 game. There's no way it's going to be good. It's good as fuck. It's so stupid and fun.
It is. It really makes you feel like a mad scientist. Just like, well, if I just combine these two together, see what happens.
You can choose on like a by limb basis what part of the animal you're inheriting to go from one to the other. You essentially choose two animals, and from there it's like, okay, do you want the gorilla head or the giraffe head? And then you can do that to like the front arms, the chest and back, and then the back legs, and then the tail as well. And like you can create such freakish creatures in this fucking game.
Truly monstrosities, not just creatures, but monstrosities.
Yeah. The giraffe gorilla was really something that like fucked with me to witness.
No.
Because it was like giraffe body with gorilla head.
Terrifying.
Oh, even worse, I actually updated that because it was giraffe back legs with gorilla arms up front. So it kind of like walked on its knuckles and had a like big long giraffe neck, but a gorilla head, which is just so frightening.
But just its front legs were gorilla arms, so its back legs were
its back legs were giraffe like hooves. Yeah.
So was it walking on its knuckles or was it walking on its back legs?
It was
booty just up in the air if it was walking on its knuckles?
It was on all fours. So like its front was using the paws and the back was using the giraffe hooves. So it's like kind of galloping in the back and sort of walking on the front. It's
an
horrible.
Abomination. An abomination.
It looks so bad, but every time I was like, I got to make some kind of freak in here. Like this is the best shit ever.
This is definitely your game because you can just make an army of weird little guys.
Weird guys, yeah, absolutely. I thought it was going to be overwhelming at first, and partially it is because like at some point you do need to make like a functional creature that is actually good, you know? They have like stats and stuff so you can pay attention to like, okay, if I need like somebody who can actually like deal damage, how do I do that? And so you need to at least get like one good dude on your team.
Sure.
But the rest of it you can just make some freaks, and that's like the best shit about this for me.
Who is your all-star?
There was a lizard gorilla that I think they like give you in the tutorial. And I was like, that looks pretty good.
The eel gorilla.
Yes, yeah.
The electric eel gorilla hybrid that looked like a wiener dog.
Yes, that one worked quite well. He was very good.
That's a strong animal.
Who were you leaning towards? What was your vibe?
I did really like the wiener dog animal.
Yeah.
That was a strong one. But I didn't even have an all-star. I just had a cast of characters that were just weirdos.
Yes. Yeah.
I just had a menagerie of freaks. Like I said, I really leaned into the mad scientist component of this game. And I was like, I'm just here for the experimentation, really. I'm not even here for the objectives. I'm just making as many like unique freaks that I can to do this.
It's really the draw of the game. Like, I know that it's an RTS game, and I would say, like, all things considered, it's not a bad RTS game at all. Like,
no,
it had a lot in there that I was like, this is a considered game. Like, it's not just strictly a place for your like spore creations to go and fight.
Yeah,
it is like you do kind of have to make like a balanced army, at least a little bit, and then it's got the kind of standard like, you know, you need to harvest electricity and like wood and stuff like that to be able to like build enough creatures and have enough buildings. And so like it was a competent RTS in that way. But certainly the draw is just like the creature maker.
Yeah. Other than that, it's a pretty, standard RTS, I would say.
Especially for this era. Like, it feels like most other RTSs from this like
similar to Snow. But I think that's why they probably went so hard on the story and then just gave you so many different ways to mess with the creatures, right? That's really what you're there for, is the creatures. And then the story is just kind of like, okay, they're really trying to make this feel unique and different and something separate than, StarCraft, Warcraft, all that kind of stuff. It's not fantasy. It's hover trains. And which I love the hover trains. They made no fucking sense, but they were cool.
Yeah, it's there is like almost a like steampunky kind of thing going on here where like the technology is weird in that it's like, why do we have a locomotive with like air hover parts on the bottom of it to go from one island to another? I don't know, but it looks fun. It's cool.
Looks cool.
I also loved how the character models in this game are just like deranged. Like the actual humans look so otherworldly and freakish that I'm just like, this is also fun. Like it goes beyond this is like weird to this is hilarious and cool.
We're all creatures here.
We're all creatures. Yeah.
No one's not a freak in this world.
I also really appreciate when they start like really letting you loose with like, all right, now you got like insects and fish and stuff like that, which you start to be able to make just such unholy creations in there. The like combination of like a praying mantis and a walrus was something that I was like, I shouldn't be seeing this. Like my human brain can't comprehend this one.
Truck Thulu was talking to you, huh?
Yes, he was speaking through my actions for sure. I saw like a clip of like an orca whale with like dog legs where it was like walking around on the land. It was so bad.
The missing link.
Yeah, exactly. The fish have come back to the land.
The whales have come back to the land. They're returning.
Did you fuck with RTSs? I forget like if this is a genre that you were really into.
I did play a lot of StarCraft as a kid, and I did play some Command and Conquer as well. I didn't really mess with Warcraft. I might have played some like Age of Mythology, like lightly, but I was not a big RTS player. I was a child when I was playing those games, so I was just using cheat codes. Yeah. To play StarCraft really, but I remember having fun playing it and like not being at all mature enough to understand the geopolitical nature of the story. Oh
my God. Me neither. I went back and played that first one a couple of years ago. I think I talked about it on the show. And like, God, dude, I didn't get anything when I was a kid. Like so little I was actually like permeating into my brain. I was just like, I don't know, Zerg cool. Protoss cool. Like that's really it. Because there's so much politicking in that game.
So much politicking.
Totally forgot about. I think I'm probably in like a similar spot. I played a lot of StarCraft. I played a lot of Warcraft. But I was also like mostly there for the campaign. Like I every now and then would be like, oh, I should play this with somebody else. And then would promptly just get my ass handed to me on a silver platter. Like just so thoroughly destroyed that I'm like, I don't think that this one's for me actually. Like
your APMs weren't high enough.
No, absolutely not. And I tried to get into StarCraft, I think 2 for a little while where I was like, I want to know how to play this in multiplayer. And
I remember that phase of yours.
It was so hard. It was so challenging to get in there.
And you're like, I'm going to play this guy. And then he immediately messages you GG.
Yes.
I'm like, whoa, this guy is serious. And then he proceeded to kick your whole ass. No offense.
They usually did. It was pretty rare that I was like actually getting some traction and beating people. But I feel like most of the time the RTSs that I reached for were ones that weren't necessarily like so complex, but rather like they just had something that I was interested in. Like there was, oh God, what was the name of it? It was like a Star Wars RTS where like you had like a galaxy map. Empire at War. That one was pretty good. And I liked it a lot, especially just because like they had the map of like, here's all the planets that you have to go get. And I was like, that's sick. I like that. But really anything more complicated than that was too much. I know that like Rome Total War was out when we were kids and like that shit was way too much for me.
Yeah, absolutely
way too much. And it wasn't until I was like in college where I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to play a Total War game.
I'm ready.
It truly took me until that
enough.
moment. Yeah, like my frontal cortex needed to be like fully formed.
I have my high school diploma. I'm ready.
Yeah. In fact, almost my college diploma at that very moment.
Yeah.
And so like I wouldn't say I'm like an RTS like a freak, but like someone who really enjoys RTS games, or like, you know, I'm a professional at knowing what any of this shit is, but like I enjoyed most of these games at least a little bit. And so like in comparison, I think Impossible Creatures was like, it felt like it was giving me the same fun of a lot of those. Especially just like I felt like I knew what I was doing at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. That was a cool game.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
I mean, like, just to reiterate, the thing that you're here for is the freakery, the weird creature making.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy. I think it would be easy to look at this game and be like, this is just an RTS with a weird skin on it. But that skin is just so weird.
It's so
and like so strange to interact with that it's still pretty fun and different. And it really tried and put its whole ass foot forward, its whole ass and foot, and a foot sticking out of its ass forward.
Yes,
to make this interesting. And so I think it's commendable.
I know, it's admirable for that. I definitely feel the same way. It's good. I enjoyed it. Anyway, that's Impossible Creatures. Tubby Custard, thank you for suggesting.
Thank you, Tubby Custard.
Yeah,
great name, by the way. Good name.
Yeah, very fun to say.
If you would like to interact with the podcast more, you can go to podtimism.com. You can look at old episodes of the show. You can look at our podcast art that Chase has lovingly made. You can look up games that we have talked about in the previous episodes. And you can also suggest a game for us to do in the future. Please let us know what you want us to do. We're trying to be methodical about this now and get people through, get through the backlog of suggestions that we have. So please keep them coming. We love it.
And we came upon such a wild realization on the last day of the Steam sale last week, where we're like,
yes,
oh God, there are so many good games.
This is our moment. This is our time.
I don't know why we hadn't thought about it until that very second.
I don't know.
But
spend like $85 on Steam games. Got like 20 games.
20 video games. Yeah, it was
so
crazy.
Many games.
Because some of them, it's just like they're at that perfect moment where they're not like so in demand that people are like, oh, we should still be charging like, you know, maybe 25% off. But they're like, nah, this one's like $2 if you want to play this game.
Just give it a go. So hey, Valve, we'll take sponsorships, Valve.
Yeah,
no problem.
No problem. Give Valve a shout out on every podcast. No, I don't know. What I'm doing here. But yeah, real
sell yourself out for Valve.
Big ups for the Steam sale.
Big ups. Yeah. Good job. There's also a link on our website to take you to the Worst Garbage Discord server. Yeah. Where you can interact with our little podcast there, but you can also check out some other podcasts like Paws and Claws, Into the Aether, Girl Mode, Frog of the Week, Zip, and Can't Let It Go. Check it out. They're cool. They're good. It's a fun time.
It is a fun time.
Thank you, Scout Wilkinson, for the podcast art. It's great. We love it. Everyone loves sunflowers. It's a good thing. You can check out her art at co-fi.com/humblegoat. Maybe her commissions are open, maybe they're not. It's a holiday season. She's busy.
All right. Relax.
Just how it goes. And lastly, thank you, dear listeners, for spending your time with us. We would be having these conversations with or without you. And it's fun to have you here with us too. We enjoy it. It's great. So thank you for spending your time with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We're almost at the end of this year, which is shocking. And I'm sure we will wax a little bit more poetic, but like so significant a year for the podcast as far as just like listenership goes.
Yeah.
So really appreciate all the new people who have checked it out and all the people who have been around and I don't know, just all the Podtimistic feelings out in the world now.
Absolutely. All listeners are created equal, but I like to think that one of those listens, David Hayter.
Man, that's the thing is it's within the realm of possibility now, right?
At this point, yeah.
He's said the words
out loud. Our first
out
episode
loud.
Was Metal Gear Mandir, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And so like he could have, I don't think it's super likely, but like prior to him doing that cameo, there's no shot, right? Like there's no way that he's out here just checking out video game podcasts, but like maybe he said the words.
He sure did.
Might be rattling around his brain every now and then.
The Garen of Legend has put this into motion.
Yeah, it is true.
Anyways, Chase, do you have any video game wisdom for us this week?
Yeah. If you roll up on an island and they have like horrible animal hybrids, I would leave. Or alternatively, first advice, leave. Alternatively, if you could make some real freaks, if you could bend the sort of nature of reality around yourself in a way where the freaks were like, I love being this way. You know, the animals were like, I wish that I had crab claws as a tiger.
So if you could gaslight them.
Listen, they told me. That's what they told me. Because obviously you have the technology to at least communicate with animals. If you're splicing DNA to the point where you can put, I don't know, a dolphin nose on a dog.
The island of Dr. Doolittle and Dr. Moreau.
Yeah. Dr. Moolittle.
Dr. Moolittle. Dr. Delo.
It's a good one.
They sound like they're neighbors. Moolittle is kind of like fuddy-duddy. Delo is like a DJ by night.
DJ by night, and like, you know, some people show up to the shows.
Yeah. Not a good DJ. Not a successful DJ by night.
No. But he really puts his whole ass and foot into it, as you said.
Ass and foot and ass. Ass sticking out of the foot sticking out of the ass. Any combination you want, you can do it on the island of Dr. Moolittle.
It's like fractals. Like when you zoom in far enough, it's just like a foot and then a butt and then a foot on that butt and then a butt on that foot.
Where does the foot end and the butt begin?
Is this my ankle or my cheek? I don't know which one.
My ankle, my cankle, my tankle?
Anyway, Dr. Moolittle coming in 2025. Eddie Murphy, where you at? I need to talk to you about Dr. Moolittle.
That's going to be a deranged movie with Eddie Murphy. Oh,
He'll be there. He'll show up.
He'll show up.
All right. We'll see you for Goaty next week, everybody.
It's coming.
All right. See you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.